Okay, what is up, sister friends? Welcome to Heart with Coach Emily. Today we have a super special guest, my friend, my mentor, my destiny wrapped raptor over there.
Yes.
Molly O'Brien. You probably know her and love her yourself. She's pretty prominent in our space, especially for female entrepreneurs. But Molly, I like all of my guests to just introduce themselves to you.
Oh, okay. Hello. My name is Molly, and I am just kind of a free spirit. I started in the fitness industry a long time ago, went to school for fitness. I knew very early on that I wanted a career in strength and conditioning, working with athletes. I worked in the NHL for about 10 years, so training some pretty prominent athletes. And my ego was like, oh, I love this. I love all the accomplishment. I loved being in the weight room. I love telling men what to do. Like it just got my ego so pumped up. And I chased a lot of achievements, titles, accomplishments for a very long time. And when COVID happened, my world kind of came crashing down. Not just, I hope you meant by introduce yourself, like give my whole life story. Okay.
Go for it.
um, my whole world came crashing down. I didn't just lose my job. I also had a really serious back injury. It became very clear that my marriage was falling apart and there wasn't anything I could really do about it. I lost my passion for what I was doing in the fitness space. And I was kind of grasping at straws. I took my business online. I created an online fitness business, much like I'm sure many of your listeners are either doing or have done, or maybe are a client of an online fitness business. And my ego just went to town again. I started chasing money and different accomplishments and just trying to climb my way to the top of a new space. Took me about a year and a half to realize, like, this is not a long-term solution. Here I am again, burning out, unhappy. My life is not fixed by all of these things that I'm accomplishing. What the fuck do I do now? Like, hello. So, yes, this last year and a half, I got divorced. I packed all of my things into 2 suitcases and decided to live as a digital nomad. I've been traveling for the last year across Europe, most recently in Mexico. And I've pivoted my entire business into the business coaching space. So, what I do now is I work as a life and business alignment coach, really helping people get clear on what it is that they actually want, not because society told them that that's what they should want, but because their little hearts are just like, that's the life I want. I'm scared though. I don't know how to make that work. So, what I love doing is helping people see for themselves what they want, and then also using their business as a vehicle to really bring that into reality. That is what my journey has allowed me to do. So now I live a life where I work 10 to 20 of the most amazing hours of my week, my work. I love it so much. I love working with people like Emily, who are just so good, such good humans, and just want to do so much good in this world. And I want to help them have the tools to be able to bring those dreams into reality, but not like burn out, not make zero money. I want them to be able to actually really build a life for themselves that is probably more beautiful than they can even imagine right now. And so, yeah, that is me. I am living my most beautiful life and it just keeps getting better. And I'm like, everybody come with me. Like, let's start living beautiful lives. Enough of this life in gray. Let's live in color, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is like, oh, but like with Molly, that's like Molly's such a deep human. So also it's like that was her life story in a nutshell, right? Like there's so many layers to you and so much to you. Like anyone that meets Molly, I know for me, I met Molly outside, not in a business mentor setting. I met her. She came over to, I was in Austin, Texas for an event, and she knew somebody that I knew through somebody else. and they showed up to the house we were staying at, and I got to meet her there. And I will say, like, from the moment I met you, Molly, I was like, I must know Molly. I need to know more. Like, there was like a magnetism to you. And um Molly made us do this avocado ritual.
Like, hello, I'm Molly. Let's do a ritual together.
I actually think I'm gonna make everybody do it at my bachelorette, because my cousins are gonna be there, but also Emma, Karina, and Rita are gonna be there. And so I'm like, I'll have people who are not scared to be vulnerable with people who are gonna be super scared to be vulnerable. So I'm like, I might make them all do it at my bachelorette, just to like.
Should we explain what it is, just so that
Yes.
people know and they're like, okay, cool, avocado. Do you want me to explain it?
Yeah, you explain it.
Okay. So I hate superficial conversations. It literally makes my skin crawl to be like, what kind of car do you drive? Like, how's where are you from? Like, I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah.
So I just very early on learned this about myself, and I learned that the truest connections that I have in my life come from real conversations. And so when I go into spaces and if I feel like people are actually open to it, I'm like, hey, let's actually connect, like at a level deeper than this bullshit. So anyway, I have a game that I call the avocado game, and all of us kind of knew each other. We were all fitness business coaches. We didn't have, like, I would say, a super deep friendship. Maybe some of you guys did, but I was just meeting you for the first times, but I knew your types. I knew that you guys were people who want to do something in your lives. I felt like you were open to it. And in the avocado game, I take a literal avocado. It could be any object. It doesn't have to be an avocado. It just so happened that we had one. And basically what happens is the person with the avocado picks one person and you speak greatness into them, which means you tell them something that is fucking amazing about who they are. And that's beautiful. But the really transformative part is that when somebody is speaking greatness into you, you are not allowed to do anything except receive it. You just say thank you. You're not allowed to do this, like every woman wants to do this, like, oh no, like you're so great. Like they want to deflect and they don't feel comfortable with just receiving. They want to like give back to someone. So when you just receive it and you just absorb and you just let the words land, two things happen. The person who is speaking greatness into you gets to actually have the act of giving with you literally just absorbing it, which when you talk to somebody and you want to give them a compliment and they're like, no, like I'm not good, like all these things, it doesn't feel good. They didn't receive the love that you were trying to give them. So that happens, but then also the person receiving like learns to be uncomfortable for a moment, but to actually understand like those things that maybe you don't see in yourself, the love that someone's trying to give you, if you let it, it will crack you open. It will help you. And so many of us, whether you are a coach listening to this, whether you are a woman, like we all deal with this stuff, right? We don't feel comfortable receiving. We are constantly trying to please other people. We are constantly trying to like give to everyone else. And in that process, a lot of times what happens is we just bleed ourselves dry. We burn out physically, mentally, emotionally, sexually, spiritually. We become so hollow and empty because we're just constantly giving and never able to truly receive, whether that's asking for support or allowing someone to love us deeply and intimately. So yeah, it was a quick it wasn't really quick. It probably took us like half an hour and everybody's crying, right? Because it's like you realize really quickly as you go through this game, like it's sometimes the first time somebody has actually like let people's words land, and it's emotional. And for us as women, I deeply, deeply believe that like we crave intimacy, we crave true human connection, and we need safe spaces to be able to practice that. We need safe spaces to be vulnerable and emotional and to stop apologizing for crying or taking up space or being good. Like so many of us apologize for our strengths, right? We're like, oh, I'm sorry I spoke too much.
Yeah.
I'm not
No.
gonna, yeah, go, yes.
I also I think like what was why it's so helped was so amazing and so great is I don't you probably feel this. I don't know if everyone feels this. The way I describe it is like when you're with people, you feel like there's like until you break through with a vulnerability, there's a bubble. I feel like I'm like bouncing on the bubble. And like that's how I feel inside. And I know that I'm thinking like, well, I don't know if she actually likes me or if she like thinks I'm cool or if she thinks I'm like, well, I don't know. Something I struggle with personally is just constantly wondering that, right? Like, it's just like a shadow of mine. But when you did that, it allowed for all of us to be even more friends. Like, I think it was just super pivotal. And like the first time I experienced like receiving was at a retreat I went to, and some people, each woman would come up who had spent all weekend with you and put a hand on you, and you couldn't say anything. Just like Molly said, you have to literally just like let it hit you. They put their hand on you and they say things that they saw in you over the weekend. And you just sob. Like you're just in this chair, just like sobbing. Like, I can't believe all these people who don't know me, they only have seen me in this 48-hour window of a weekend, think these most beautiful things that family members have never even said about me, right? And it's like now you feel connected for life to this other person. And especially for women, I don't, I can't speak to the male experience, but for women, like I think there's just constantly like this, I don't know the word, but it's, you know what I'm saying? Like this feeling
Yeah,
face.
yeah. And
Like there's
it's not just made up, like, it's not just the energy, because you're right, we do like put walls of protection around ourselves energetically, emotionally, most of us didn't grow up in environments where we were taught how to really truly be open. We were taught we have to protect ourselves, we have to take care of ourselves as individuals. That is the Western world culture, right, is very individualistic. And so we're taught to like protect through many layers of traumas and many layers of conditioning. But there's actually like a very physical thing that happens too. We create armor in our bodies with like how we hold our muscles. There's different minerals that get deposited to like literally protect us. So you can take a hair sample and see calcium deposits like literally going up the shaft of your hair. Like we create physical armor to protect our emotional, mental, spiritual health. And it is so interesting because a lot of times in my experience, because I struggled with exactly the same things. You wrote a post on Instagram the other day where you're saying like, I used to think people at sight would not like who I am. And I was like, yeah, me too. And probably a lot of women are like, yeah, me too. Why would somebody, but like, I'm so flawed and broken or whatever. But I truly, truly believe that there's a point of we need to first accept ourselves and love ourselves for those flaws and those little parts of us that we see as kind of broken. But then we have to develop that skill of discernment of like who can actually hold space for us as we are. Not everybody is ready for that, right? Not everybody's like, yeah, you can trust me with your vulnerabilities and yourself. There's certain people that you have to be able to discern like this person is safe for me to share my feelings, to be myself. They are going to receive me and support me. And there's other people who are not. And I think sometimes we just don't have that skill set built up yet of being able to see who are the safe places or where are the safe places. And then we end up going into spaces that maybe aren't the safest, and they can't hold our vulnerabilities. And so then we have that experience of, oh, like shoot,
Yeah.
maybe that is broken. Maybe that's not good.
I always say, like, I always hate when I'm not, maybe I shouldn't say it like that. I just, when you're like trying, right? Like you don't realize this isn't a safe space yet, right? Maybe like this has happened in the past. I think now I'm listening more to my, self of like, this is clearly a no. Stop trying to make it a yes, right? But in the past, I'd be like, it's a no, but I'm going to make it a yes, right? I'm going to be super vulnerable with this woman. And then you feel it's almost like a hangover from the vulnerability. I call it like a vulnerability slut. Like you just like gave it out and then you feel shame and guilt about it. And then this person like is like not receiving it or doesn't give you like the same in return. So then you feel like garbage. I guess I'm curious, like in your story, like, did you experience something like that? And how did you overcome something like that?
Oh my gosh, yes. I literally, hello, my marriage. Yes, I did. Like, and I think this is just part of life and getting to know ourselves is, we have relationships where maybe we realize like that person isn't actually very healthy or safe or compatible to be around, but we learn that through like the trial and error of, oh, I'm trying to be vulnerable, I'm trying to be open, I'm trying to develop a more intimate connection, and I feel like I'm being judged or rejected. My marriage, I don't expect anyone's here googling anything looking people up, but like, I wasn't married to a bad person, but he just didn't have he didn't want a partner who wanted to go deep and have deep conversations. I had social anxiety and I didn't really want a big friend group or a big social life. I was trying to go somewhere in my career and work really hard. And, that wasn't part of his vision either. And when he um, didn't connect with those parts of me, my immediate reaction was, oh, I have to change this. This part of me isn't correct for the outcome of my marriage to work. I need to adapt. I need to either fit it into this little box over here where I just go over here and I do it myself, or I'm constantly bending myself over trying to be more social, even when it feels really uncomfortable and I'm exhausting myself. So yes, constantly. And I'm still unlearning that. You talk a little bit about human design. I don't know if you've done that on this podcast here, but Emily and I are both projectors, types of humans that we do need a little bit more rest, recover, solo, downtime, recharge. And our society really doesn't like validate that very much. We have a very high view of the extroverted social person. That is still something that I'm coming to become more comfortable in myself. So how I've come through that is really, I just made a dump list of things I'm uncomfortable with in myself. Like I literally wrote down like, I'm anxious. I don't, enjoy big social settings, like things that I would feel like I would need to explain to someone and be like, hey, you got to know this about me. So I just wrote them all down. I had like maybe 20 things. And I looked at that list and I'm like, how can I like start to be comfortable with these things just for myself, not feel like I have to explain them to anybody, but just can I appreciate for myself the with every shadow there is a gift, right? Can I find the gift in this thing? So if I'm someone who has a tendency of being more anxious, for example, I'm not an anxious person, but I have a tendency of being more anxious. What is the gift there? Well, the gift to me of anxiety is like I give a lot of shits about what I do. I care deeply about what I'm doing in this world. I'm planning, I'm thinking for the future, I'm building. And yes, that may come with some discomfort, but there's actually a beautiful part of it. And when I can really look at it, then now instead of avoiding it and packing it away, now I have a chance to work with it. I can appreciate the good parts and I can actually say, are there unhealthy parts here? Are there things that maybe if I shift, how I lead my own life when I go to bed, or how I eat, how much caffeine I drink. Am I overcommitting myself, that I can have a healthier way of relating to this quality of myself? So I think curiosity, and I think actually being willing to, like with any shadow, go into it, ask more questions, approach from a place of curiosity rather than judgment, with just yourself or a qualified professional who can guide that journey with you, a therapist. There's lots of different practices out there, but someone who can guide that conversation. I think non-judgment is so important. And I think, we talked a little bit about knowing your safe people and places. If there's something you're judging about yourself, it's not yet appropriate to take it into a relationship and expect someone else to be able to hold it for you. If you can't hold it for yourself yet, you're not ready to ask somebody else to hold that part of you and make it okay, because that's not what relationships are for. It's not for fixing us, it's not for completing us. So solo journey first, and once you come to a place where you actually feel comfortable with those things, I really this is my personal belief, but I believe you start attracting different people into your life, people that are actually like, you have a different energy. Like my energy of my anxiety and my low social before was like, don't look at me, don't approach, like, whereas now I'm like, hi. And people who can hold it find me, you know? So I think you really do attract different people when you are living in an energy of love for yourself rather than an energy of judgment for yourself. So that's how I've navigated. And hopefully there are some pieces in there that will help you guys who are listening as well. But non-judgment, baby, non-judgment, sit in it, really get curious with it, curiosity. Ooh, and the book Lighter by Young Pueblo, who is like one of my favorites. That book specifically is like almost a step-by-step manual for going through this. So that can be a helpful resource as well.
Okay, I'll put that in the show notes. And also you saying like talking about the shadow and being curious about it. I think Brene Brown says it where she's like, don't have feelings about your feelings. I think she said that. But like your shadows, like you don't make up a new feeling for the shadow, just figure out what the shadow is and what it
Yeah.
actually means. That's what that made me think of. And also I was the same way, Molly. I always wondered why in school I literally was like, would cover my whole face with hair and like didn't want, it was like school. I should have been homeschooled. I should have been homeschooled. Like schools truly traumatized me to the fullest. And
Yeah.
I now when I look back, I'm like, dear God, I was like in prison, but knowing that now when you can get curious about the shadow, it wasn't like there was something wrong with me, which I think a lot of us who are brand new to the space or as an entrepreneur, because being an entrepreneur, every single shadow is like amplified,
Yes.
the business owner. You're
Yep.
like, this is just a really bad thing about me. I need to change it, instead of realizing like, well, what is your body actually trying to tell you? Like, right? Like, so I'm a very anxious person as well. Like Molly said, we are both projectors, and I think that does play a role in it, because like was always putting myself in situations that were just like not energetically working for me, and forcing myself to be an extrovert and be just full on out there, which is like no wonder why I had so much social anxiety. Like
Yeah.
I forced myself to go to college, and I'll never forget. I'm like, I'm 19 years old. I should not be this anxious. I should not be this anxious to go into this college classroom. Like, there's no reason for me to act like this. Like, I would get in my car and have to like give myself a pep talk and like, we can do it. Nobody's looking at you. Like, it's like this whole thing. And my mom, I would like sob my eyes out. My mom would be like, just, I'm like, get in there. Just, it's fine. And I would be like, there's so many people. Like, I think it's important to know that like what you're feeling doesn't mean it's like there's something wrong. It's just something that you need to learn.
Yes. It's a signpost. It's not who you are. It's not a quality. Like I don't believe, and that's why I made the correction of I am not anxious. I have anxiety at times, or I feel anxiety at times, but like emotions and like anxiety, these are just these are signs, and these are normal human experiences. Like emotions, they're gonna happen, they're gonna come. They sometimes you know exactly what they're related to, and sometimes they're releases. They're things that we have stored and that we're releasing. And you know, the way I look at when I feel or experience anxiety now is not a judgment of who I am, but instead like, let me look at the last couple weeks. Have I been doing things that have potentially like definitely prompted me feeling or having more of an anxious experience? Yes. Okay, cool. It's a signpost instead of being a judgment. And again, that's where I just think that if we replace judgment with curiosity, we can learn so much. Like my view is I'm just learning about Molly. You know, I look at like my whole life as just I'm learning about who I am. And it's such a cool thing when you get to stop judging yourself and start saying, like, this is interesting. Like, oh, it's so interesting in these types of scenarios. This and this happens. Okay, cool. Like, how can I work with that? Or do I just want to accept it? Like, it just becomes fun, and it has an air of play instead of an air of like pass or fail. So, like you said, with entrepreneurship, I just want to loop this in because I think this is important. When it's tied to our perceived success or real success, so, you know, we need money to survive, obviously, but because it's attached to something like that, and you know, one of the first first calls we do in Aligned and Free, the program that I run, is on codependency and how much we're like taking our personal experience and marrying it into our business, which is quite unhealthy when we're using our business to be a judgment of all of the parts of ourselves. So, you know, when it's attached to money, there's this extra layer of like, now I need to really perform, or I really only need to show these good parts of me, or I need to look at who's being successful and I need to change to fit that mold. And that is fucking exhausting. Like there's nothing more exhausting than trying to contort yourself to be what you are not. That is where I believe imposter syndrome comes from, is like you're not actually being authentic. You actually aren't just allowing yourself to be you. And the paradigm that sets up is that, you know, the people you would probably love to work with the most, not probably, the ones you would love to work with the most, which I call soulmate clients, the people who are just like, you need to work with, I get you, I feel you, like, yes, I understand all, like, yes, whole body, yes. Those people are only going to be attracted to you when you're just showing up as yourself, with strategy, of course, involved. But you know, when you're performing and you're trying to be what you're not, you're trying to be the successful prototype, the people that feel like a yes are not going to be attracted to that. You're going to get people who want a fix. And that's typically exhausting for most coaches. So I deeply, deeply believe that for any human, it's important to start finding your more authentic self. But I believe as an entrepreneur, it is extraordinarily important early on in your career, because if you want to last as an entrepreneur, like it's exhausting, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot more if you're trying to be what you're not. So I fully believe that you're only going to find an aligned business. You're only going to feel what feels easier for you and is not going to burn you out when you start asking yourself, who am I really? How do I really show up? Not when I'm performing, but when I'm being me, you know?
Yeah. What would you like? So something I've noticed, I would say like something I've noticed is that with a lot of women, it's like this definitely takes a lot of work. Like I'm not saying that we're not going to solve all these problems in this podcast, but like, you know, like the first, what would you say is like that first actionable step to like start really starting to see who you really are? Because I feel like as a woman, it's easy to be like, well, I'm a mom, I'm a teacher, I'm a entrepreneur, I am all of these labels.
Mhm.
But then when someone's like, well, who are you, like, energetically, or who, like, what is Emily, what is Molly, right? Like, in essence, it's like, everyone's like, I don't know how to answer that question,
Uh-huh. Yeah. I mean, it is a process, right? And I think that that's the first most important thing to know, is that, at least in my own practices with myself, I believe that that is the essence of life, is getting to know who I am, and that it's not like a this type of journey. It's like a this spiral. If you can't see, if you're not watching YouTube, if you're listening, I'm just drawing a spiral with my hand. It's like happening like a spiral over time, and you're just getting closer and closer and closer to the essence of who you are with each experience, with each relationship. And when I say relationship, I don't just mean with humans, like every human interaction that is a relationship, but you have a relationship with your business, you have a relationship with your body, you have a relationship with your environment. Every scenario that you're in presents you an opportunity to learn about yourself. So, one of the things that has been so helpful for me has been like being present in my body and noticing my physical signs of open. So openness means, oh, this is me. Like, there's something in this that I love, which to me in my body feels like openness. My breath becomes smoother. It's not held, it's not choked, it's not rapid. It's smooth, it's easy, it's open. I feel clear. I feel like if someone were to come up to me and say, "Hey, how are you doing?" I'd be like, "Good. How are you?" I'd be open to that. And that awareness of that state in myself allows me to have a detector for what is Molly? What does Molly like? What does Molly enjoy? So, again, like, my spiritual view is I'm a soul in a human body. I learn by paying attention to my body. My body is constantly showing me what I like, what I don't like. And so I know my yeses. I just explained the yes feeling for me. My no feeling is constriction. It is my breath gets shallow, my chest gets tight, my stomach is kind of in knots. Um, it feels, you described like the we put up walls kind of feeling, or armor. And with the no feeling, when I get that, I think there's two types of no's for me. One is like, this is a hell no. And then there's like, this is a I'm I've got fear resistance to this thing. So like my body is tensing up and avoiding it, but potentially that's not a hard no. Potentially that's something that, if I learn how to go slow in these situations, breathe, relax my body, be aware of what's going on, maybe this is actually a yes. So, as an example, for me, you know, I would always get no's around people. Like even just like even a conversation like this, maybe my body would be like, "Ooh, we're afraid of this. We have some trauma attached to this situation." But when I sat with myself and I was writing, like, what do I want in my life? Well, I want to be able to be more open and have more intimacy in my relationships. I want to allow myself the experience of like truly getting to know people. When I started, this is called somatic work, working with your body. So when I started developing these skills of like going slower, having more compassion and non-judgment, being able to work with my breath and my muscle tone, I started realizing that underneath that initial layer of no, or like turn around and go back, there was like actually softness and openness to certain people. Some people were still a hell no, and that's great. I could be like, okay, you don't need to be here. That's good. But some people were a yes. So the tool that I'm suggesting is, it's awareness of your body. You can look up somatic work, but really, I think paying attention to your breathing and your your muscle signs, paying attention to like when you're just kind of feeling like closed off. And just starting with simple things like asking yourself, do I want tea or coffee? And that's a non-threatening situation, right? So you can then start to discern, okay, my body is open when I think about coffee. Cool, I want coffee. Great. You do it with the non-threatening situations first, and you build up a relationship with yes, no, yes, no. No one else's feelings are involved. You're not having to please anybody or worrying about being judged. You're just doing it with yourself. And then gradually you're moving into places with safe people. Like, maybe I feel so comfortable around my coach, Emily. I'm going to practice like just, responding to her in a more open and honest way or whatever. And then as you build that skill, you start to naturally just trust yourself to go into other situations with other people, and you don't care so much about the result. I think that just happens when you get older and you start to realize when you actually honor your real yeses and you honor your real nos, life gets so much better, so much easier. You have so much more energy. Everything just gets better. And so you're like, wow, it is a waste of time to not do this and to not honor my yeses and not honor my nos. I don't have time for that life anymore. So yes, start with yourself, start with your body, and go from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's so helpful. And I think, women, we naturally have, a higher sense of that, but we like push it away or think it's crazy. So one thing about me, I love murder podcasts. I listen to I love it. I don't know why I love it. Sometimes I'm like, what is the reasoning here? But women in these situations, like you can listen to episode after episode after episode. Constantly, the woman that was affected, if she lived, right, if she wasn't murdered, like she had a feeling. This was a no. I shouldn't have gotten the car. I shouldn't have answered the door. I knew I shouldn't have, but I did it anyway. And you like ignore it. That's a very extreme, obviously, case, but I think it's really important. Like your body is already doing these things, but you just ignore it literally all the time. Like how many times have you gone on a date when you've messaged them on Bumble, and even though then you're like, I probably shouldn't go on this date, but you go, and then you're like, I knew it. I knew I shouldn't have gone. Right. Yep. And then you just wasted all that time with somebody or whatever the case may be. I think that just breaking it down to just like even just the coffee thing, there's so many things that we just like make ourselves do that aren't even us, instead of just allowing ourselves to be. And I think something that I always struggled with was constantly wondering why like some people just seem like they're so them just existing. And I always felt like I am in my head so like thinking about everything, and I'm just like a thinker naturally, but like I'm like, she just seems like she's just like, yeah, I like orange juice. And I'm like, well, do I like orange juice or is it this? Like this whole narrative around something. So, but really it's like, no, I don't like orange juice, but I'm trying to convince myself maybe I need orange juice or, so like there's so much to it, but like these small decisions, you building that trust is going to grow, where you're like, even like my marriage, when I got married when I was 20. I'm also a divorcee. So I will never forget. I knew on the day I said I do eat, like to my first marriage, I knew I shouldn't have done it. I was like, I knew it. Now I can look back and I knew it. I knew it was, my body was like, don't do it. Don't do it. But I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it. It's going to be fine. It's all going to work itself out. Right. Like, so there's all these ways in which you can step into your power and your truth and feel like you're living your best life and you're around people that you actually want to be around by doing just this super small practice of what does yes look like? What is no? Because your body knows. It knows every time.
Really, really, really does. And yeah, I just think that and not to get too existential with it, but I think it's really important at some parts of our lives to ask ourselves, what is life really about? Like, is it really about having a marriage at any and all costs? Is it really about making as much money as we need, as we want to make? Is it really about these things, or do we want it to be about something else? And I talk about with a lot of my clients, what is your North Star? What is like that thing that no matter where you are, what you're doing, like that's your anchor. And for me, like my belief is, again, it's like life is about getting to know who I am and being open to, experiences that feel like a yes, even if they don't make sense to anybody else. It doesn't matter. So you mentioned like the Bumble date thing. So, I met a guy on Bumble and he's like super like yes, like so big yes. And for me, before in my life, I would have had all these, like, what if this, what if that? How will other people see this if I'm fully in? And it just makes sense to me. And now I don't care. It's what's allowing me to do the things that I really enjoy and have the life experience that is, when you say I want a life more beautiful than I even imagine, you have to let go. You have to allow life to show you and reveal itself to you. You're not going to get a beautiful life by like white knuckling the steering wheel and trying to control every little thing. You have to just, create an intention of what do I want to call into my life, and then let go. Let it reveal itself to you. If you get yeses in your body, don't be like, oh, how am I going to explain it to this and this and this person? Like, will they judge me? Will they like, if they do, that is their thing. That is not about you. That is about them. And they're showing you very clearly who they are and what they're prepared for. It's nothing to do with you. When I pivoted my business, when I went to travel, there's so many things that I'm like, this isn't going to make sense to anybody else. And I remember my accountant being like, you are not making money. What are you doing? And I'm like, I just know I need to pivot my business. And I know that, yes, I'm in some low income months right now and I'm still paying for business coaching. And it doesn't make sense because I'm making $5,000 a month right now and paying, eight for business coaching. I know that doesn't make sense to you, but in my body, I know that this is what I need to do to get to where I know I need to be, that I can't even see yet. I don't even know what it looks like yet, but I know I'm going somewhere and it's big and your little brain can't comprehend it, but mine can. And that's like what we need as women. Like we're so powerful. This is why I work with women. I spent most of my career working with men and I still love men. I think men are wonderful. But working with women, my deepest belief is like, we don't understand our power. We spend too much time apologizing for who we are and trying to be something else, that we never get to know our power, our capability, we never have a relationship with ourselves. And I've seen that all around me. And I care about coming on to podcasts like this and talking about this because I'm like, things can get so much better. Yeah. So much better. You have so much to share with the world. Just watching your journey, Emily, like unfold, when you're in it, you can't see it the same way. I'm looking at you and I'm like, damn, girl, you're moving through so much. You're letting go of so many deeply ingrained old ways of being and thinking that are probably some of the hardest to let go of, just in terms of the conditioning that's been there and the level of trauma that's been there to instill those things. And you're doing it. And, it's not easy. It's never easy to be like, oh yeah, like I'm going to make all these changes. I don't really know that it's going to pay off, but I'm having the belief, the like cellular level of belief that there's something in this for me that's so much bigger than where my life is right now. And when you when you come from that, I'm just like, your life is, you're going to look back on this and be like, this is the best thing that I ever did for myself. It's hard, but that hard part is what reveals who you really, really, really are. So you asked that question around like, well, how can you get to know who you are? And I don't really believe that it comes easily. I really don't believe that it often comes from like, look at a core values list and like just sit at home and do these safe little ready book things and podcasts. Like that's great, but no, you're actually probably going to have to make some bigger changes in your life. You're going to have to start honoring your yeses that people don't understand. You will probably have to let go of some relationships and people in your life. You're going to probably have to face like some of the dreams that you have and be like, wow, that's kind of scary. And I'm going to have to do some scary stuff. And you're going to have to decide in yourself, are you going to be the kind of person? Do you want to be the kind of person that has the courage to step all the way up? And like, that's what life is about to me, is like, I'm going to step all the way up. Like, no half-assing, no cute little, I'm just going to dip my toe in. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Yeah.
Really? My backup plan is I'm going to work at Starbucks anytime. Doesn't matter. Whenever I'm like, should I do it? It's like, whatever. I'll go work at Starbucks. It's going to be fine. And it is. It's not even just fine. It's always so much better than I ever thought. Ever thought. So you guys, if you don't really know like all the things that Emily's going through, of course you can't, but it's just, she's doing it. And once you're not like there's ever an other side, but once you're kind of through this season, when you watch other people go through it, you're going to be like, I see you. I know what you're doing. I know how hard it is. I know the fires you're walking through, and I don't know your individual fire, but I know that on the other side of this fire, there's like there's a lot coming for you, baby.
Yeah. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I appreciate that so much.
Mm-hmm.
And just it means a lot coming from you, since I know you're my friend, but you're a role model, so it just means a lot to me that you said that. So and I wanted to kind of like a little piece of where you're like, not to get existential, but I highly recommend the book if anybody's never read it, by Joseph Becker. It's called Things That Matter, and it's a whole book that this man wrote. He's a minimalist. It's got some minimalist stuff in it. I like minimalistic books, but the point of the book is like the biggest regret of elderly people who are dying in hospitals and is that they never were fully themselves, and that they never didn't like, they cared too much about what other people thought, or they cared too much of like fitting into the norm, and they wish they built the business, or they wish they traveled or whatever. They're like, I should have just said F it and did it. Right. And so I have like a short little story. I know we're running out of time, but this was a big reminder for me literally this week of like just constantly reminding myself, like, it doesn't matter what people think, like live your freaking life the way you want to live it. And like, I met my neighbor across the street. Her name is Carol. I'm now fully obsessed with her. Her birthday was the 22nd. She's a full Leo, and she is a Leo. She is the Leoest Leo I've ever met. She's 81, and she lives in this house across from me. And she is fully herself. She does not give a shit. She comes out into the middle of the little court in her colorful like sundresses. Her whole house is filled with her own art. Like, she's like, this cup, she brought me in her house. I was like, Carol, don't bring strangers into your home. Like, you don't know. But she's like, come see all my art. She shows me all of her art. She's like, this is my fun room. She paints these like crazy ass paintings, embroiders this crazy stuff. And I was like, I was like rejuvenated. I was like, I love you. I am obsessed. I love her so much. I came home and I brought her a bunch, because me and Austin make crafts. I brought her some of the crafts that I made. She was like, she hugged me. She was just like, she is fully herself. I saw her this morning on our walk, and she's 81. I'm wearing like this all black outfit with like the side of my pants has this like opening on it. She's like, oh my God, I would wear that. That looks so cute. And I'm just like, love it. Just reminded me that like you get one life, one time here. And I was like, Carol, I was like, came home to Austin. I was like, I am obsessed. I want to be Carol. She gave me sourdough bread that she's like making on her own and this random painting. Anyways, it's just like a reminder if you ever like are like, what matters on this earth, go talk to like an elderly person and they will be like, live your life. My mamaw is 92. And every time I ask her, like on her birthday, I always ask her, like, what would you say to your younger self? Every year she gets older because she changes it a little bit. But it's always like dance a lot. She's like, I love dancing, dance a lot, love your family, love the people in your life, and just like have fun. That's literally what she always says. And so when you're like getting in that tornado of like, other people are going to be upset with me, or I don't know if this is the right thing, or I should do this. It's like, you're going to be 90 years old one day. And like, you're going to wish that you traveled to Europe like Molly did and do all these crazy things with no money. And every time I've done something really scary, like when I moved across the country to Colorado, everybody was like, why are you moving to Colorado? And I was like, just meant to be there. It's like, I'm just going to go. And ever since I moved, like, I feel like this is when I finally started living my life because I trusted myself with that decision. And so the same thing applies to all of you. So I think what Molly said was so wise. And I encourage you to just really take that to heart today.
Yeah, there's nothing like the wisdom of older people who have lived and are looking back. And yeah, I think sometimes we think it always has to be big things, like we have to move somewhere, we have to, start a business or whatever. But, I love what you said about Carol, what's her name?
Carol.
Carol, like, she's just being herself by wearing what she likes. She's just being herself by having hobbies that she likes. And like, she's embracing it in her day to day. And I think if you do have a calling to like, I feel like I really do need to or want to be in a different environment. I do need to move, or I do need to pursue this. Like, I've had this in the back of my head to start a business or a YouTube channel or, whatever. Like, great. Yes, do that. And if you don't have that yet, like, like, be yourself in just the day to day. I think truly, I'm obviously like with what I'm wearing, I'm not a fashionista, but I think fashion and experimenting with just like how you dress, how you decorate your interior, what you choose to do in the morning with your times, what you choose to do in the evening with your time, like, I think it all helps. It doesn't have to be huge, it can be small, it can be the coffee or tea question, but making a decision that I actually want to get to know who I am in this life. I actually want to give myself the opportunity to, like I always say, I want to know Molly at the deepest level of who she is. And that to me is my mission. So in any experience that I go into, in the morning when I'm sitting outside with my coffee, I can learn about Molly. If I go into a relationship, if I go into a conversation with you, like we're having now, I'm learning about who I am in each of those things. And that brings me so much joy. That to me now, having a conversation like this is not less of a win than having a high income month. I literally feel them in my body the same way, because my definition of success in life is getting to know who I am. That's what I celebrate. I don't celebrate, I still do celebrate making money, but it's not like, whoa, this is the thing that matters. It's like, that's cool. But like, yesterday I had a really hard conversation and cried, and I moved through something. That was a substantially bigger win than a high income month. So again, when I'm like talking about North Star, I'm not just like, oh, this is kind of cool. I'm like, if you get to decision over decision, interaction over interaction, really live by that, you start to, it just really changes how you move through life, what you choose to pursue, the career that I had before when I was working in the NHL, I really didn't choose any of those things. My ego did, right? It was like, Molly, you need to be the first female in this league because that title is cool. Molly, you need to like train more players than the other people because that accomplishment is cool. That's all my ego speaking. That's not the soul that exists inside of me. And so it's just what I see in a lot of entrepreneurs still, is that we're so caught up in chasing the ego-based things, and we're not spending enough time really getting to know who we are, what matters to us. And we all know when you chase the ego-based things, there's going to be a point where you realize it's never enough. It's never, ever, ever going to be enough to give you happiness on a deep level or meaning on a deep level. And for a lot of people, that breakdown looks really bad because, you know, it's not by choice. It happens. So yeah, if you can, whether you're an entrepreneur or just a human, if you can make that decision, like, I want to get to know who I am at a deeper level, and I want to start feeling my yeses and feeling my nos and honoring those things a little bit more frequently at whatever level I have the capacity to, I believe that it will serve you so deeply, so much more deeply than you even think right now.
Yeah.
Like, how much has it done for you so far?
Oh my, it's huge. It's like, I mean, because even like just the ego piece, like there's this motivational speaker named Inky Johnson.
Mhm.
He's a football player. And I talk about this speech all the time because I can't watch the speech without crying, but I love to watch it. I'll just like rewatch it and rewatch it. Because of that piece, he was like, there's always going to be something bigger than you. So it can't just like be about you kind of thing. And like, there's, you know, that ego can only go so far. That's kind of just what you just said made me think of. And for me, like, yeah, I base my worth off, used to base my worth off of performance. Like, I'm constantly checking it now. So like knowing my yeses and nos has allowed me to be like, you're just doing this for this person to love and accept you, or like you're just doing this because it's really that love and acceptance. So with my yes and nos, I can discern like, we're forcing something here, like
Mhm.
actually what you want to do. And like with all the changes that I've just been making, it's no trusting the yes and not letting the ego tell you like that's fake news, you know, like your ego's like that, you know. So it's been monumental. Also, just like even with in my relationship with my fiance, like he can even tell the difference, you know, and he'll tell me like there's a huge difference because I trust the yeses more and more the more that I choose them,
Mhm.
which is
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it created like a feeling of peace, like of, I'm not in a competition with anyone. I'm not in a competition with my former self. It's like, okay, I'm just here every
yeah.
day, just deciding like yes or no. And that's really all there is to it. And that's,
Yeah, I think like sometimes I have a hard time with peace because I really
we're
struggle.
working on it.
I really struggle with peace. It's a really hard mountain to climb for me, but like
Mhm.
definitely can. I feel a lot more peace in my business now. Like I had a sales
Mhm.
call last Saturday and I wasn't anxious and I was like, you know, and that's just like, those are those kind of small wins for me that help me trust those yeses and like gets me to that peace. Like my body wants to be stressed out, you know, that's going to take
Mhm.
some time to like get all the way out of my body, but
Yeah.
it's getting there because of those really small practices, like you're saying, like saying yes
Mhm.
to like, Emily, your body wants to sleep till 8 a.m. instead of your ego saying, bitch, get up at 5, you're lazy, right? Like that's
Yeah.
just those small things that have really helped me overall, like so much.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And when we come from like the fitness background, I constantly say to fitness coaches, you've learned everything that you need to know through your body already. You give all the advice that you need to your coaches already, but in terms of the physical plane of existence, and you know, now you're learning lessons on the, you know, the mental, emotional, spiritual planes. And so when you're talking about this and you're like, peace is hard for me still, it's like, okay, well, yeah, we can see that the greater state of like, oh, I live in peace. Like maybe that's not even realistic, but like, are you more peaceful in some of the things that you're doing? Yes. Like you're not carrying so much of that just resting state of anxiety and will I be pass or fail from this situation? And that's huge progress. It's like the fitness client who's like, they can't even see that they're making progress because they're so focused on like, I'm not at my goal weight yet. And you're like, well, your life is substantially changed. Like, do you have eyeballs? Like, do you understand? Like, your clothes are fitting better, your blood markers are all better, you're stronger, like you're clearly on the path, idiot. But I'm just kidding. We don't call our clients idiots. But it's like, well, I'm not all the way there. And it's like, okay, but you're getting there, right? Like you can see this, yeah. And I love that I'm talking about peace like this. I'm like, you can see this, yeah, you're getting in this direction. But
peace.
but like when we come from a place and we had a childhood where stress was the norm, like that's what our nervous systems grew accustomed to, was a little bit of chaos and stress and uncertainty. That's what our bodies perceive as safe and is kind of like gravitating to constantly. So for us to rewire our nervous system at such a large level for the resting state that we feel comfortable with to be one of peace instead of stress, we're going back to like, you were probably an infant when you started learning that stress equals safe. So this is like 30 years going on or plus of conditioning that we're rewiring here. So, everything moves slower at that level. And I see female fitness entrepreneurs do this all the time where they're downplaying constantly like what is really happening for them because they don't see how big it is and that they're on this incredible path. So they'll be like, oh yeah, like I took 5 hours off on a Friday, but I'm not where I want to be at. And I'm like, the fact that you did that, or you set a boundary with a client, or like you didn't feel like you had to sign that person who was so unaligned, even though you're not exactly where you want to be at, like these decisions that are just so easy to write off as like kind of small. It's like, no, damn, that's actually huge. And if we want to keep going on that journey, we have to start like recognizing like, damn, that's cool that I just did that. Like that would have been not the case 5 weeks ago or two, whatever, 2 months ago. And
No.
yeah.
That was me.
I'm
I'm like, Molly's like, you must take a half day Friday. Like, I'm going to encourage you. And I would be like, what am I going to do? What am I supposed to be doing?
Yes.
What am I supposed
That's every female fitness entrepreneur is like, hello, my life is work or gym.
What do you
If
want
I take off, what do I do with my time?
It started with like gallivanting around my downtown, just like walking and like, I guess I'll get some coffee. And like, and then it evolves to you seeing, oh, I'm going to actually do this and this. And then all this fun comes into your life and excitement because you're not stressing about anything. And stress for me and my body feels like, this, I don't know if TVs do this anymore, but TVs, when you go to the channel and it's like
static.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like I feel like it's like in my blood is like, that's the feeling. And I like all the time, like anytime I do some type of like, this is why, if you guys don't know about any kind of somatic work helps so much, because every time I do like the sauna or like, a breath work thing, it's almost like it feels like it's being like siphoned out.
I know, like literally same. I get radio static like in my head. I feel like something's in there, like going squish, 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 squish. And like when I really use those different types of somatic practices, it literally feels like this layer of just like scrunchy paper is being pulled off of my brain. And then it's just me in there again. It's like, oh, the best feeling ever. Second to the person drying out your ears at the hair salon.
Stranger Things, you know, when he has it inside of him, like that's what it's like, not you, and you just need it like taken out. And that's why I'm like, I constantly feel like I'm like, it's still in there.
Yep.
Still like trying to take over my life, the little alien static, but it's like cooled out. So
Yes.
it makes a
Yeah.
huge difference. And take Fridays off. If these takeaways.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. I fully, fully, fully believe one of the most beautiful parts of being an entrepreneur that so many people are not utilizing is like really being aware of your energy and understanding like just because you're taking action does not mean that that is productive or moving you forward. And that probably, if you actually looked at all the things that you were doing and only focused on the things that are critical and very important and stop doing a lot of the bullshit that's just stuff with no return on investment, you actually have a lot more time than you think you do. And you're starting to help people with their schedules and understanding their energy more. And I fully believe that this is one of the biggest areas that can make a huge difference because, if you understand your key priorities and you're putting your time and your energy into only the most important and aligned things, and that's getting the best of you. And then you're resting, doing things for rest, pleasure, and play, which is if you want to lean into your feminine energy, which is getting like so pop culture right now, is everyone's like, oh, I want to lean into my feminine energy. Let me take a pole dancing class. And I'm like, no, incorporate rest, pleasure, and play. Like that's what you need. You don't need to wear a dress. You don't need to put on makeup. You don't need to do a pole dancing class to regulate your nervous system. Give yourself rest, pleasure, and play. And I literally write 3 lists on my wall: what things sound restful, what things sound pleasurable, what things sound playful. And like that's a task in your week, is like do that, make it fun. So I feel like if you're an entrepreneur and you cannot find it in yourself to give yourself a half day off, you're doing it wrong. Like you are definitely not making the best use of your time and your energy if you can't even do that. And you need to start figuring out what your priorities are and start cutting out the bullshit, because you will be so much happier and healthier if you actually be more purposeful with your time and give yourself recharge. Like you recharge. You just need it. It's as important as anything else that you are doing. I firmly believe that.
Yeah, totally. Definitely. It's a definite non-negotiable. So since you're going on vacation,
Yes.
what is the whole week rest, pleasure, and play? Like, did you designate some 3 things? Like, what are you going to do?
Mm. Well, now that I'm at this like really sophisticated point in my journey, I'm just kidding. But like, okay, so when I was first kind of getting into this, when I was really still in that like hustle culture mentality, and I realized I'm burning out here, my physical, mental, emotional, sexual, spiritual health is shit. I need to be purposeful. That's why I made rest, pleasure, and playlist, because it was like I would literally book off a half day and I'd be like, okay, I need a list to look at because I don't know what I like yet. So I had those lists as, okay, cool. I can pick. I can do that. Whereas now I trust myself. I know how I'm feeling each day. I'm like, ooh, do I want to do I want to just do fucking nothing? Do I want to sit like a potato and read a book for 5 hours? Do I want to do yoga? Do I want to like really take my time with my coffee? These don't have to be extravagant things. It's more about like honoring how you truly are feeling, what your body's saying yes to in the moment, and being more present with the experience. And I have done several plant medicine experiences, and I like sharing this because it is an area that I believe has been so helpful in my life. I'm not a doctor. I don't recommend things for other people, but in my experience, I was in this ceremony, and one of the most beautiful moments where I was doing this Bufo ceremony. So it's a very powerful, it's called the rebirthing medicine. And when I came to this moment where I literally felt like I was being reborn into my life, I was aware of all of my senses at the same time. And it felt like time was just suspended. And I was so grateful just to be able to like feel my fingers and smell what was, the incense in the room. And, there were some people playing music, and to hear that, I literally just cried, being like, how cool is it that we get to have so much sensory experience available to us in every moment, and how crazy that I rarely really am aware of that. Like, I used to drink my coffee fast. I used to eat fast. I used to work fast because I was, again, in my ego, everything was about getting as much done as possible. And this experience really, really showed me, like, very up close, that that's not how I want to live. I actually want to be present in the moments. I want to experience them. Like, let's say you're with a partner, someone you love, like, don't you want to really be present with them? Don't you really want to feel whatever it is that you feel in that moment? And so, yeah, when I say rest, pleasure, play, a lot of what I do now is, if I don't spend a lot of money, like, I really don't. I don't need that kind of stuff anymore. I don't seek that out. I'm not looking for the most stimulation possible. I'm just like, wherever I am, if I can do something that allows me to just enjoy being there, that is perfect. Like, it's so perfect.
That was, I was so, I was like I was like picturing you in the ceremony. That was amazing. But
So
but it's so true. I remember, I'll never forget last day. I'll never forget what, in the throes of me wondering why the hell my life was so stressful and why my business wasn't the successful and all these things. And at that time, I was getting life coaching. Some of you know Sean McDevitt, and I remember talking to him and being like, crying, because I'm like, when I'm with my fiance, I'm not there. I'm not there. I'm
yeah.
not, and it makes me sad, because I am such a loving, caring person. Like, if I love you, you can have all of my organs, like, have my left foot, like, I just love you so much. And then I'm just not being there for him in a way that I'm love, like, and Austin would be talking, and I am like, I am not there. And I was like, I don't know how to get to be there. And so you just saying that remind me of that, and how far it has come. I've never done Bufo or anything like that, but just like through small practices of like noticing, oh shit, I'm not here right now. Like, bring it back. Right. And like those, that like it is so much more pleasurable. I mean, me and Austin just sit on the porch, and that's like our daily rest, pleasure. Or I take my cat outside, and I just pet him and watch him as he chases grasshoppers and like looks at the birds. And it's just like, it's perfect. That's all I'm like, this is great. I'm the crazy girl laying in the grass with my cat, and we're just chill. Like, it's just so nice.
Yeah, so good. Like, I don't know. I used to seek so many of the big things to give me, not like entertainment, and I see a lot of entrepreneurs making money, and then they're spending it on these things that are just like for massive doses of like pleasure or rest. And I think when you can find the magic in the mundane, like, just, you can enjoy the little parts of life, and you realize, wow, I really don't actually need anything to feel happiness or to feel good about myself, my life, my relationship. It's all here. It's literally all available to me in this moment. It's such a beautiful, beautiful experience to be able to have. And, just, I think this whole podcast, we've kind of been going on that topic of just like getting to know who you are, and know, what brings you real joy in your life and pursue that. And I really think that's the ticket. You don't get to that place of like, oh, I can just sit in a chair and watch my cat chase grasshoppers and be like fucking excited about it, until you're like, I feel good with who I am. You know, that is like where it starts. When you feel good with who you are, you don't look for it outside of yourself anymore. You don't expect other people to bring it to you. You don't expect other situations to bring it to you. And you know, I do business coaching, but I would say most of my coaching is actually far more about helping people get to that place of, I know and I feel really good with who I am. And that's what translates into their business. And we can build the business to support that with strategy. But until you have that, you're still like doing what you think you should do, and it doesn't feel good. It really feels terrible. So yeah, I just think there's so much available to us, and it just starts with that choice of, what do I want my life to really bring me? What do I want to experience here? And yeah, you're just such a beautiful example of someone who is in it and doing it. And you know, it's not perfect. Oh, sorry. Of course, my apologies. It's not perfect. It's still, oh, my phone rang.
Oh, I didn't hear
Hear
anything.
it?
No.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, it's not perfect, but it's like you're doing it and bringing it to people through this podcast, through your coaching, through everything that you're doing. And that ripple effect is huge. And so, yeah, if any of you guys listening today are inspired, you've definitely got a good person in Emily to look up to here.
Thank you. Thank you. So, thank you so much, Molly, for your time. I know she's got vacation time coming up, so she's got to get out of here. But whenever you talk to Molly, it's like it's 30 minutes time scheduled, and you could talk for hours. So, but I really appreciate you making the time today and just sharing your wisdom and just being you. I will link all the things to find Molly in the show notes, so you can find them there. I highly recommend following her. And if you have any questions, you can also put those, there's like a Q&A on Spotify where you can put your questions have any for Molly, and I will send them over to her.
Beautiful.
So thank you. And
you're so
everybody,
welcome.
have an amazing day, and I will talk to you soon.